The night sky was on fire. Massive XL Voran warships hovered over Earth cities, their metallic hulls glowing red from the destruction below. Lasers rained down like lightning, turning skyscrapers into rubble. The streets of New York, Beijing, and Moscow were filled with smoke and screams. The invasion was not a battle. It was an execution. In his grand throne room, aboard the warship Dominion, Emperor Vrogan of the Exalvoran Empire watched the chaos unfold on holographic screens. His golden eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Pathetic," he muttered. "Humans are weaker than I expected." His generals stood behind him, their reptilian faces twisted in amusement. "By tomorrow, Earth will be nothing but ashes," one of them sneered. Down on the surface, General Elias Ward wiped blood from his forehead as he sprinted through the ruins of Washington, D.C. His uniform was torn, his weapons nearly useless against the enemy's superior firepower. Around him, soldiers fought desperately, but it was clear they were losing. A transmission crackled in his earpiece. "General Ward, we have to retreat. The capital is falling." Ward clenched his fists. Retreat? That word tasted like poison. But he knew the truth. Humanity could not win this war. "Not yet. Get everyone to the underground bunkers. Evacuate as many ships as possible," he ordered. "We need to disappear." As Exalvoran death squads moved through the city, executing any survivors, a fleet of human ships, small and battered, launched from hidden bases across the planet. The invaders detected them too late. The last hope of humanity vanished into the dark void of space. By dawn, the world had changed forever. The once bustling cities of Earth were now silent graveyards. Smoke rose from the ruins, blocking out the sun. The oceans boiled where Exalvoran weapons had struck. The last human defenses had fallen. On every screen in the galaxy, the Exalvoran Emperor made his grand announcement. The humans are no more. Their world is dust, their armies crushed. The Empire has triumphed once again. Across the universe, alien races who had once feared the humans sighed in relief. The greatest resistance to the Exalvoran Empire had been eliminated. Or so they thought. Far beyond the ruins of Earth, hidden in the icy shadows of a distant moon, the last of humanity gathered. Inside the command ship Valiant, his face was grim, his eyes filled with the weight of failure. "We lost Earth," he said. The words felt like knives. "Millions are dead. Our families gone." The room was silent. No one had the strength to speak. Then, a young lieutenant stepped forward. "Sir, what now?" Ward's gaze hardened. "Now? Now, we prepare for war." The officers straightened. Some had tears in their eyes. Others had clenched jaws, but they all understood. There was no surrender. There was no going back. There was only vengeance. Deep in the heart of the Valiant, technicians worked in a darkened control room. Fingers flew across keyboards as they hacked into galactic communication networks. At exactly midnight, a signal spread across every star system, every Scalvoran-controlled planet, every ship in the Empire. It was a simple message. A shadowed figure appeared on screen, his face hidden, his voice cold. The Exalvoran Empire was at its peak. They had crushed hundreds of planets, enslaved countless species, and wiped out humanity. Or so they thought. Now their ships were vanishing. Their bases were turning to dust, and their soldiers were whispering in fear. Something was hunting them, something they believed was already dead. Captain Rylak of the Exalvoran supply fleet was on edge. His massive transport ship, Vorthal, carried weapons and fuel for the Empire's war machine. It was an easy route, no threats, no enemies. At least, that's what he had been told. His claws tapped against his control panel as he scanned the dark void of space. Something felt wrong. His crew was uneasy too. They had heard the rumors. Ships disappearing. Bases destroyed. The whispers of an enemy that should not exist. Suddenly, alarms blared. Unidentified ships approaching. A crew member shouted. Rylak's eyes widened. He saw them, three sleek black ships emerging from the shadows. Their designs were strange. Part Exalvoran. Send a distress signal. Rylak barked. Too late. Green beams of energy sliced through the Vorthal's engines. The ship shuddered as explosions ripped through its hull. The enemy ships moved with terrifying speed, disabling every defense before the crew could react. The last thing Rylak saw before the bridge was engulfed in flames was a symbol flashing on his screen. Aboard the human warship Valiant, General Elias Ward watched as Exalvoran engineers were dragged into the interrogation chamber. These were not prisoners. They were resources. The humans were learning, adapting. Every captured ship, every stolen piece of technology was studied, improved, and turned against its former masters. Inside the hidden shipyards of the Resistance, human scientists worked tirelessly. They had taken Exalvoran warships and made them better. Stronger shields, faster engines, deadly AI-controlled weapons. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. Across the Exalvoran Empire, paranoia took hold. Supply routes were compromised. Communications were jammed. Officers went missing. The mighty generals, once confident in their power, now spoke in hushed tones. How are they still alive? One muttered, "We destroyed their world." "This is impossible," another growled. Yet the evidence was clear. Humanity was not gone. They had become something else, ghosts of vengeance, striking from the darkness, never leaving survivors. Emperor Vrogan slammed his fist on the war table, his golden eyes burning with rage. "Find them," he roared. "Hunt them down and erase them from existence." But even as his forces mobilized, another base exploded. Another fleet vanished. The ghosts of humanity were always one step ahead. On a desolate moon, a Exalvoran outpost burned. The ground was littered with the bodies of soldiers who never saw their killers. The few survivors were rounded up, their weapons stripped away. Among them was Commander Zolvarik, a high-ranking officer of the Empire. He had led countless attacks on human colonies. He had watched Earth burn with his own eyes. Now he was on his knees. Blood dripped from his mouth as he looked up at the humans standing before him. The mighty Exalvoran Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Their power was absolute. Their enemies had fallen before them. Their greatest victory had been the destruction of Earth. But now their empire was crumbling. And it all started with humanity's return. On the enslaved planet of Drakvash, the streets were filled with smoke and fire. For years, the reptilian Drakvashi had lived under the boot of the Exalvoran overlords, forced to mine rare minerals and build weapons for their masters. Their own leaders had long since surrendered, believing resistance was useless. Until now, in the darkness of a slave bunker, a hologram flickered to life. A human figure, masked and hooded, spoke in a calm, chilling voice. "The Exalvoran are not invincible. They bleed. They die. We have taken their ships. We have burned their bases. Join us, and together we will end their reign." A moment of silence. Then, a Drakvashi warrior stood. His eyes blazed with fury. "For too long, we have served these monsters. No more." Rebellion exploded across Drakvash. Armed with stolen Exalvoran rifles, the once enslaved warriors stormed government buildings, killing their masters and raising the banner of freedom. And they were not alone. On dozens of planets, species that had been crushed by the Exalvoran rule rose up, inspired by humanity's war. The Exalvoran army, already stretched thin fighting ghosts in space, now found itself under attack from within. The Empire was breaking. Inside the Imperial War Chamber, the Exalvoran generals were at each other's throats. Who allowed this to happen? General Korak slammed his fist on the table. Who let the humans survive? Across the room, another general growled. "You were the one who declared them extinct. Korak lies." "This is your failure." The arguing escalated into violence. Weapons were drawn. Blood was spilled. The Emperor watched in silence, his golden eyes glowing with fury. His once loyal generals had turned into frightened cowards. His empire, once unshakable, was falling apart, and he knew exactly who to blame. The stars burned as the human fleet arrived. 1,000 warships, stolen and enhanced, emerged from hyperspace, forming a massive wall of destruction. The flagship Valiant led the charge, its hull marked with the symbol of a shattered Earth. General Elias Ward stood on the bridge, staring at the Exalvoran homeworld below. "Today," he said, "we finish this." The order was given. The invasion began. Human warships rained fire upon the planet. Zalvoran defenses collapsed. The once mighty empire, which had destroyed Earth so easily, now found itself helpless. Human soldiers, alongside freed alien warriors, stormed the cities. The Exalvoran people, who had once cheered for their empire's conquests, now screamed in terror as their world burned. Deep beneath the imperial palace, Emperor Vrogan stood before an ancient control panel. His claws hovered over a single red button. His guards stood behind him, nervous. "My lord, the humans are too strong. We must surrender." The emperor did not turn. "Surrender?" His voice was low, dangerous. "I am the ruler of the galaxy. If I cannot rule it," he pressed the button. Deep within the planet's core, an ancient doomsday weapon activated. The ground shook. The sky turned red. Energy surged as the planet's core prepared to explode, a blast that would wipe out the entire system. On the Valiant, alarms blared. A panicked officer turned to Ward. "Sir, the planet is going to self-destruct." Ward's fists clenched. He knew what this meant. If the Exalvoran homeworld was destroyed, billions would die, both their people and the Allied forces on the surface. They had won the war. But could they stop the Emperor's final act of madness? The final battle had begun. The once mighty Exalvoran Empire, feared across the stars, now faced destruction. The humans, those they had thought wiped out, were here, marching through the burning capital of Vorath Prime. And they would not stop until their vengeance was complete. The sky was black with smoke. Fires raged through the towering spires of Vorath Prime, the heart of the Exalvoran Empire. Explosions shook the ground as human warships rained destruction upon the city. On the streets below, human soldiers advanced. Clad in advanced armor, wielding weapons stolen and improved from their enemy, they moved like ghosts, sweeping through the Exalvoran defenders with brutal efficiency. General Elias Ward led the charge. His rifle was steady, his heart cold. "Push forward," he commanded. Zalvoran warriors, once proud conquerors, now fled in terror. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They had destroyed Earth without mercy. Now they were the ones begging for survival. A Zalvoran officer tried to rally his troops. "Hold the line. They are only humans." A bullet tore through his skull before he could say another word. The humans were not just humans anymore. They were vengeance. The Emperor falls inside the Imperial Palace. Emperor Vrogan sat upon his golden throne, his claws gripping the armrests tightly. His empire was gone. His armies were broken. His people were dying. And now the doors burst open. General Ward stepped inside, his armor covered in blood and dust. Behind him, human soldiers stormed the throne room, weapons raised. The Emperor growled. "You think this is victory?" He rose to his feet, towering over Ward. "You think you are better than me?" Ward's eyes were cold. He raised his rifle and took a step forward. "No." He pressed the trigger. A single shot echoed through the chamber. The Emperor of the Exalvoran Empire collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. His reign of terror was over. Ward stared down at the dying ruler. His voice was quiet, yet filled with the weight of an entire species suffering. "This is for Earth." With a final breath, the Emperor was no more. The war was over. But humanity did not seek revenge against the Exalvoran civilians. They did not enslave. They did not rule through fear. Instead, they built something new. A galactic alliance not of conquerors, but of survivors. The Drakvashi, the Zorkai, The Nathari, and countless others who had suffered under the Exalvoran joined them. Together, they forged a new empire, one based on strength and unity, not oppression. The human empire was born, and the galaxy would never be the same.